Oh, hi! You've built an app using a prompt and now you're wondering why are developers paid that much when you can have your app in 30 minutes? Come in, I'm gonna explain. Hi there. This may be a video that comes out on the 1st of April, so it's not a serious one. But hopefully it will give you a glimpse into what programmers actually do every day. Welcome to Software Engineering Explained for Vibe Coders. If you have just created your app using a prompt and it's looking good and you have no idea what do software engineers even do beyond that, and they're gonna be replaced by AI now, right? This video is for you. We're gonna go from the actual code that AI is writing for you to the data that AI cannot write for you, to where do we store the data, how do we safely get to the data, and how much does vibe coding actually cost you? Spoiler, you can save a lot of money if you know what you're doing. I know, right? Let's start with what you're actually seeing. Whether you're building your app with some tools that are showing you the visual representation, or you're even using some advanced tools like Claude Code, chances are, unless you are a software engineer, you don't really look at the code. But you should. And here's why. Token usage, as well as the time you spent programming or prompting, or however you're going to call it, is a limited resource. I'm going to make an assumption that you would want to save that. And the best way to save on your token usage is to write the code yourself. And hear me out, you don't have to be a software engineer to start doing that. You can start really small. For example, if you want to change the text in your app, just copy that text, search for it, and change it on your own. It's going to take you 1 second compared to a few minutes. And I don't know how many tokens talking to AI who often goes on an adventure instead of fixing a simple task. Code is basically a magic recipe for brewing your app, and you are allowed to touch it on your own and change the parts that you understand. But I have to give you an out, it's way easier for us engineers to do that. And you know why? Because we are building components that we can reuse in different parts of the app, which means that if we need to change the color of a button, we go to one place and we change that button over there. We do not go through the whole code base like AI does. Because while AI is really good at writing the code, it's not good at writing the maintainable code. If you're gonna ask AI to build you another event card, it's gonna build you another event card on a different page. There is a pretty big chance it's not gonna reuse the existing one, especially if it differs in some way. And by the way, neat trick for the vibe coders, just ask AI to refactor your code to find the pieces that are getting repeated all over again and move them to one component. It's gonna save your tokens while you're asking AI to do stuff. You can also make changes when you're out of credits but you still want to work on your app, and you might even learn a thing or two. Okay, but what if you try to follow my advice and you search for some term in your app but you cannot find it in your code base? Where did it come from? This is what we call data, and data is the king of all the applications, because what you care about is what your users create and change and access. If you just created an app using a prompt, chances are your data is a file with some mock data. It's just data that's used to showcase your app. It's not real, it's not interesting because it's not yours. When you're building a messenger app, there is no point in reading the mock messages. You read them once, it's entertaining, but then you want to see your data, your own data. So you need to collect the data and store it somewhere, preferably safely. I don't really want my direct messages to be read by anybody else knowing the link to my database. I think my cat is destroying my desk. A database is a magic place where data lives. There are multiple types. The most popular one is a relational database, which means there are entities with some properties and they are relating to each other in some way. The other types would be storing JSONs or documents, or storing your files, which is finally named blob storage, but we're not going to be talking about that right now. Let's talk about how do we access our data. Well, if it's your database and you can access it directly, you can ask for your data in a language specific to your database. And if it's a relational database, it's some kind of SQL or SQL. You execute a command and you get your data back, and it looks pretty much like a spreadsheet. Can you use a spreadsheet as a database? Absolutely, but you are making a deal with the devil. It's a different kind of hell. Don't do that. No amount of vibe coding is worth it. Don't do that. Why? Because as you can imagine, we want to protect the data. If anybody can connect to your database using a link, it's not a very safe database. You might think, but I will protect it with user and a password. But the question is, where are you going to store it? And that brings us to a separation between frontend and a backend. Don't worry, these words may be scary, but you know exactly what it is. The frontend part, or the UI part, or the client part is something that you see. It's the app on your phone, it's the page in your browser, it's something that lives on your computer right now. In fact, in the browser, you can go to a developer mode and see all of the requests that your app is sending somewhere. You can see the console log, you can inspect all of the elements. This is the part that you practically own at this particular moment. You can even make changes. They're not going to be saved anywhere, but it makes for funny screenshots. But as you can see, if you examine the calls that come from your app to the outside world, any password that you're going to store there is going to be visible. It's going to be added to the call, and it may even be visible in the source code that you can access in your browser. So how do you access the database? And the answer is you have a backend. And if you did go further than just prompting your app, you might say that, yeah, but my app can access the data and it doesn't have a backend. Well, the answer is very simple. If you don't have a backend, one was created for you. But let me back down a bit and explain what a backend is. A backend or a server is something that you do not see. In simple words, it's a program that runs on a machine and is usually connected to internet, so you can access it from your browser. The only way to communicate with your backend is via API, Application Programming Interface, which may sound scary, but in reality, it just means that there is an agreed way of communication that will be understood, and any other way will not be tolerated. The example of it would be apps like Supabase or Firebase or what have you. They allow you to create a database and they provide you the APIs or the endpoints or the URLs that you will call from your app in a secure way to get access to your data. And while this is a great way to deal with your data because you don't have to think about security, the problem is the cost. Even though these programs have a pretty generous free tier, it's like a drug. You start using it and then you cannot move out, especially if you're a vibe coder and not a software engineer. If your app becomes successful, you get more users, you get more usage, you need to switch tier, and then you're trapped into spending a lot of money on these platforms. You basically don't have a choice. And don't get me wrong, it is amazing for pet projects. It doesn't cost that much to host an app for a limited number of users. Maybe if you prompted your app, you have something working, you connect it to something like Supabase to store your data so it's secure, and you host it, which means your app lives on one of the managed servers, so all the job is done for you, you're fine, unless your app goes viral. Serving 10 users is easy, serving 200 users is easy, 1,000 users, sure, but what about millions? What if you get users from UK and Australia and Peru and US and any other country? You would have to worry about latency because, believe it or not, internet is not instantaneous in the world. The only reason you can access YouTube as fast as somebody in Australia is because there are dedicated YouTube servers in both continents. If you're interested in how the whole infrastructure is working in the cloud, you can watch my video in which I explain how we went from a desktop app that anybody could install to a distributed system of hundreds and hundreds of servers to show you a simple web page and why it's justified. But for this video, know that as soon as you get more users, more geographic locations, more requirements to your latency, or in other words, how fast you can serve your content, more expensive it becomes. And here's the point when you actually need software engineers or dedicated DevOps engineers to manage this infrastructure. You really want to optimize the cost because running a successful application, serving millions of users and doing any kind of complex processing that is probably required for your app to be useful, we are talking about millions of euros a month. If you don't have an army of engineers to optimize that cost, so no, software engineering is not required to build a to-do app. Software engineering is required to build a product that can be distributed to as many users as you want to make sure that it's working as expected and it's not costing you more money than it's bringing. My advice to everybody would be to go ahead, vibe code your app, try to put it out there, try to get the users, try to make it work reliably for all of your users. It's the best way to understand that software engineering is not about coding at all. Software engineering is about making things happen. Software engineering has never been about writing the code. Software engineer is about building a robust, reliable product using the code. It doesn't matter who writes the code, it matters who maintains it. And if you're not a software engineer, to maintain the code, you will have to pay money. Either you pay it to software engineers or you pay it to the companies that do it for you. There are obviously solutions to simplify the whole process, but they're not free because they hire software engineers to make it easier for everybody else. That was supposed to be a funny video. I hope I shared enough behind the scenes to give you the big picture of what's happening in programming and software engineering, and maybe you are even interested in some parts of it. In this case, I'll be happy to see you on the channel where I'm trying to bring more code into our lives. Check out my video about going from desktop app to distributed systems because it's also not aimed for engineers. Hopefully I'll see you there or in my next video. Bye!